Hello, friends. It's the Carnivore Rabbi. A rabbi is a teacher and source of inspiration. And that's what this channel provides for carnivores of all faiths. Welcome. In many things in life, if we get the beginning right, we're more likely to get the rest right. I'm going to give you 21 rules for following the carnivore diet. This is gained from many conversations, field-tested practices by people who are carnivores, and also my own experience. And if you like this material, if you want to continue to get both inspiration and practical tips, hit and subscribe if you haven't already. It makes a big difference. The first and most important rule as a carnivore: prioritize fat. Dr. Robert Kiltz says that ketovore should not really be called ketovore. It should be called fatovore. Fat is what sustains us. Fat gives us the energy. Fat fills us up. It is the most important part of this diet, not the protein, the fat. And we were taught from a young age through our current healthcare system to resist fat, that fat makes you fat. Fat is bad for you. It couldn't be more wrong. Fat nourishes us. Fat fills us. Fat is a natural source of energy. In fact, some archaeologists believe that our consumption of fat is what made us human. It's what grew our brains. This is some fascinating research. We'll get into it. I've got a video with Mickey Ben-Dor, an archaeologist in Israel, who talks about this. It's extraordinary. But what you need to know now is simply prioritize consumption of fat. Second rule, prioritize red meat. Yes, red meat, what modern health authorities consider awful and dangerous and causes heart attacks and major problems. It's the most nourishing food on God's green earth. Red meat is complete. It has so many nutrients, so many minerals, so many things to nourish our bodies. It's filling. It's widely available. It doesn't cause any digestive problems. I remember reading, again, I'm not sure, I'm not a doctor, but that red meat is the only food that no one is allergic to. Now, I think with Lyme disease, you can actually become allergic to it, but no one has a natural allergy to red meat. Third practice. This is very important. Eat more than you think you need to, especially in the early months. Again, the biggest danger when you start carnivore, and even when you are a practicing carnivore, is undereating, because meat and fat are so filling. And undereating can lead to a lot of problems. So eat more than you think you need to. You'll stay full, and then you might intermittent fast for a while. Many carnivores end up intermittent fasting naturally. Fourth practice. Stay near the bathroom during the first few weeks. I don't need to give a long, detailed explanation of this, but when you are totally changing the way your body processes food, it's going to react, especially when you start giving it much more fat than it is used to. You will excrete that fat. Stay near the bathroom. Fifth practice. Trust your cravings. When you get a craving, when you see something sweet and you want it, know that your body is asking for nutrients and give it some meat. That's the secret. When you have a craving, think, my body is not craving that cookie. It's not craving that piece of cake. It's craving nutrients. And I can give it those nutrients with meat. Sixth practice, very practical. Don't eat cheese during the first 90 days. This is very important because cheese can stall your progress. Dairy can stall your progress in this way of eating because dairy can be addictive. The hunter-gatherers didn't really, some do, the Hamza drink milk, but dairy is not as natural for us as meat. You can consume it, I do, but try not to in the first 90 days, except butter. Butter has so little lactose in it that it's okay. Seventh, after the first few weeks and you get through those digestive problems and diarrhea, don't worry if you don't poop very much. You're utilizing almost all the food your body consumes, so you're not excreting it. Unless you're really feeling constipated and bad, you're fine. Many carnivores poop every couple of days. And that's fine. We have a natural cycle we'll fall into. Number 8, during the first few months, watch lots of YouTube videos for positive reinforcement. You're going to be facing many critics, many naysayers. You need psychological reinforcement, and that's one of the things we get from YouTube. I don't know how many people would not know about this way of eating if it wasn't for carnivore influencers, especially YouTube, but also Reddit, Facebook. Watch those, get that positive reinforcement, find a virtual community. Number 9, get your electrolytes. Very important. And that will diminish over time, but especially at the beginning, use Redmond Relight, which I use electrolyte drops, which you can get. Some people can make their own electrolytes. If you're so inclined, you can make an electrolyte mix. Go on Reddit. There's some good recipes. But that'll make sure you don't get cramps and you're getting some of the minerals you need that at least at the beginning, you're not going to find enough in meat. Number 10, and again, this is from Old Guy Carnivore. Don't use the scale in the first month. I would say the first couple months, but that could trick you into thinking you're not making progress when you really are if you're not losing a lot of weight. Some people start shedding pounds immediately, but some people it takes more time. So don't play that game. Number 11, if you feel like you need to eat something sweet and you need to eat candy, eat bacon. Now, I like beef bacon. I'm a rabbi, but any kind of bacon will do. That bacon gives that almost that hint of sweetness. And no sugar bacon is best. But even if it doesn't say no sugar and it says that sugar is an ingredient, it's usually a very tiny amount. So that's okay. Old Guy Carnivore has a whole video on this topic about sugar in bacon. Almost any bacon, except when it says it has 4 or 5 grams of sugar, if it just has a very tiny amount, that's okay. Number 12, use salt as needed. Salt, we've been told salt's bad for you. Salt's very good for you, especially Redmond real salt. Again, some carnivores disagree, but salt for taste and salt for electrolytes. Number 13, drink lots of water. Boy, is that essential. You can easily get dehydrated, especially if you're cooking your meat a lot, because that drains some of the natural H2O out of the meat. So if you're cooking your meat a lot, drink lots of water. Now, our ancestors didn't have to drink as much water because they often had blood, and blood has a lot of electrolytes in it. We obviously don't. I guess some people do, but most of us don't. And so drink lots of water, and that will help you avoid getting dehydrated and keep your body in a healthy state. Number 14, if you're going to snack, eat meat snacks. It's okay. During the first couple months, I snacked, even at night. I would have a couple of chomps. They're these beef sticks. They're the cleanest beef sticks I could find. There's even cleaner ones now you can get at Costco, or you can order Carnivore Crisp, or my absolute favorite, Carnivore Bars. Carnivore Bars are essential to my practicing the carnivore diet, and you can get them if you want with my 10% discount if you just use the word Zen, the code Zen, if you order them. They're not cheap, but they are so filling and so healthy. So eat snacks if you need to. Number 15, skip breakfast if you can. We don't need to eat 3 meals a day. We don't. It really took off in Great Britain when the Industrial Revolution happened, and people would wake up, they would eat, they would go work, they would have a break for lunch, they would come home, and they would eat dinner. It was a product of the economy. It's not a product of nature. Start going to 2 meals a day if you can, and then eventually move to OMAD if you're comfortable with it. It's not essential, but I find it the healthiest and most nourishing, and my body feels best on it. Number 16, stay as strict as you can in the carnivore way of eating, especially during the first few months. It's tough. It is a dramatic change in the way you eat, and it can be easy to slip up. If you know that certain foods trigger you, cheese, or if you know that when you eat cheese, you like to eat crackers, then don't eat cheese. It's really try to protect yourself. In Judaism, we have this idea of building a fence around the Torah. That means in order not to violate a core commandment of God, don't do anything that may tempt you to violate that commandment. One great example is we don't play instruments on the Sabbath in many synagogues. Some do, but we don't play any instruments because if a string breaks, we may be tempted to fix it. And fixing something, changing the state of something, is an act that is prohibited in a strictly observant Jewish community. So to avoid even the temptation or the need to fix something, we don't play an instrument in the first place. That's building a fence around the Torah. So maybe you don't have any non-carnivore foods in your house, if that's possible. Some people, that's impossible. You live with other people, you can't do that. But try to stay as strict as you can. Number 17, use lots of fat in cooking and consuming. I already talked about my number one rule was consume lots of fat, but use fat in cooking. In the beginning of my carnivore way of life, I would put a whole bunch of tallow on my ribeye before putting it in the air fryer. Ribeye is already fatty, but I would put a layer of tallow on each side. It was probably a bit of an overkill, but I knew that I needed to be full. And the more fat I consumed, and tallow is a very healthy fat, the better. Number 18, if butter doesn't work, butter is fine, even at the beginning. Even though it's technically dairy, it doesn't have, it just has a tiny bit of lactose in it. But some people, butter doesn't work. So if it doesn't work for you, try ghee, which is essentially butter without tallow. You can get it usually in the Indian section of a grocery store, or you can get a lot of good tallow at an Indian supermarket. We have one near my house. Or tallow, beef tallow. You can order it online. You can get it at the butcher sometimes. So if butter doesn't work, try ghee or tallow. Number 19, and this again relates to not undereating. Eat until your meat doesn't taste good. That's a good rule of thumb. That's one of Dr. Chafee's top rules. That is a good gauge that you're full. Number 20, learn to distinguish between real hunger and habit hunger. Sometimes we just eat at noon because this was the time we were used to eating, but we may not be hungry. Trust your satiety signals, especially over time. This doesn't come instantly. But really be attuned. Don't just eat because this is the time you normally ate. I made that mistake a lot at the beginning. And the problem with that is that sometimes it leads to undereating because we're not really that hungry, so we don't eat enough. And sometimes it leads to overeating in that, although it's hard to overeat on carnivore, but I would eat something when I was not hungry and I would push myself to eat more than I really needed because I thought I should be eating then. So you're breaking the habits that the standard American diet instilled in us. So really just trust your satiety signals. The longer you do this, the more trustworthy, the more accurate those satiety signals will be. Number 21, don't try to give up anything else during the first few months of the carnivore diet. I wouldn't try, if you want to stop drinking coffee, I wouldn't try that at the beginning. If you want to stop taking certain medicines, again, I'm not a doctor, I wouldn't advise any of that. That's something you have to talk about with your doctor, but I wouldn't talk or try to do any of that at the beginning. You're already making a big enough change adopting this way of eating. Focus on that. The food we consume is our anchor habit. If you get that, so many other beautiful benefits and practices will follow.